We like chapter 2. So in our first video on chapter 2, we looked at the cases. So you know what the cases in Latin mean. But now it's time to look at how different words in Latin indicate that they are utilizing these different cases. So here is our word porta, which means gate or door. And so we're looking at these endings on pages 14 and 15. And you can see them. So this is how the word porta changes to indicate that it is in a different case. So when it's in nominative, it's porta. When it's in genitive singular, portae. Dative singular, portae. Accusative singular, portum. Ablative singular, porta. Nominative plural, portae. Genitive plural, portarum. Dative plural, portis. Accusative plural, portas. And ablative plural, portis. So just the endings, a, I, a, arum, is, as, is. You need to learn those endings so well that somebody could wake you up out of a dead sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, give me the endings for first declension nouns, and you should be able to say, I, arum, is, as, is. You need to know them that well. They have to be stuck in your brain. So make your chart just like this. Make a flashcard with this. You may want to also make a flashcard that just includes the endings without a sample noun. That would be fine either way. And you need to know them that well. If I give you a blank sheet of paper for a quiz, just or our computerized quizzes, essentially just give you a blank sheet of paper, and I say write down the first declension nouns. You need to be able to do that from memory. I cannot stress enough how important and vital it is that you simply memorize these endings. And also then be able to identify them backwards. So if I give you portas, and I say describe the noun, identify the noun, you should be able to give its gender, number, and case. So for portas, its gender is feminine. Most first declension nouns are feminine. We'll talk about the exceptions to that rule in a moment. So you need to be able to tell me that portas is feminine, it's plural, and it's accusative. Okay. Here's the exception to the rule about the gender of first declension nouns. Remember, Latin has 3 genders: masculine, feminine, and neuter. Almost every noun in the first declension is feminine. The exception is the professions. So, for example, nauta means sailor, so that's masculine. But there are very few of them, and almost all of them are either professions or names. Adjectives. When we add adjectives, have endings just like nouns. We'll spend some more time on adjectives later. But for now, I want you to learn already this simple rule that adjectives agree with the noun they modify in gender, number, and case. So here's an example of an adjective: magnus, magna, magnum. And so if I wanted to say a large gate, I would say porta magna. If I wanted to say of a large gate, I'd say porta magni, genitive singular. If I wanted to say I destroyed the large gate, and so it'd be in the accusative, portam magnum. Okay, so they agree with gender, with the noun they modify in gender, number, and case. Now, we're not learning this set of endings today, but trust me when I say that magnus is a masculine version of this adjective large. And so if I wanted to talk about a sailor, a big guy, a big sailor, I would say nauta magnus, because the adjective has to agree with the noun in gender, number, and case. So I told you nauta is tricky. It's masculine. This word here is masculine nominative singular, nauta. So it needs a masculine nominative singular adjective. again, that won't detain us too much today. Today we're really focused on learning the first declension endings, learning them really, really well. But I want you to remember that adjectives agree with the noun they modify in number, gender, and case. So we'll learn more about that. And when you add, now let's take a look at your vocabulary list, because you need to make a card for this chart for your noun endings for the first declension. You should make a card with just a grammatical rule on it, that adjectives agree with the noun they modify in gender, number, and case. And you need to make those flashcards, as I showed in a different video, for your vocabulary. And for your vocabulary, so on page 17, notice that they list fama, fami. The vocabulary list will always list the nominative singular for a noun, followed by its genitive singular. You need to list it like this on your vocabulary card. That is because the declension of the noun is shown by the change from its nominative to its genitive. So I told you up here, this is our first declension nouns. We're going to have 4 more declensions. We're going to have 5 declensions. So we need to keep them straight right from the get-go. So your vocabulary is not just fama, it's fama, comma, fami. So that shows your nominative singular followed by your genitive singular. And that pattern going from a to I tells me that's first declension. Okay. Likewise, when you have an adjective, you want to list your adjectives with all the endings they're given you in the vocabulary. So if you look on page 18, you can see magnus there, the third word down. Magnus, magna, magnum. Tells you this adjective has 3 sets of endings. One for the masculine, one for the feminine, one for the neuter. And you can also just write it this way so you save a little space on your card. Magnus, magna, magnum. And then finally, when you have a preposition, it'll tell you what case the preposition takes. So sine means without, and it's always followed by a noun in the ablative. It governs a noun in the ablative, is how we say that. Prepositions govern nouns. And they're going to tell you what case they govern the noun in. So quickly, I'll read through the vocabulary to help with your pronunciation. So back on page 17, fama means fame or report. Forma means shape or beauty. And again, I'm not going to read the genitives, but you need to list those on your card. So you'll list forma, formi. Fortuna means luck. Ira, anger. Nauta is sailor. Note it's masculine. So really make a good note of that on your vocabulary card. Patria, fatherland. Pecunia, money. Philosophia is philosophy. Poena is penalty. Poeta is poet. It's masculine. Again, it's a profession. Perhaps not a profession that makes much money, but a profession nonetheless. Porta is gate. Puella, girl. Rosa, rose. Sententia is a thought or an opinion. Vita means life. Antiquus, antiqua, antiquum. So that's an adjective, so it tells you this adjective has 3 sets of endings. It means ancient. Likewise, magnus, magna, magnum. Likewise, meus, mea, meum, meaning my. And multus, multa, multum, means much or many. Tuus means your. Of course, it has a feminine and a neuter form, tua and tuum. Et means and. Sed means but. O just means o. Sine means without, and it takes the ablative. It governs a noun in the ablative. And est means is. So at this point in our weekly lessons, you've watched the video for the lesson. The grammar has been explained to you. At this point, you're going to stop the video, and oftentimes when we get into more complicated lessons, there'll simply be a separate video for the assigned translations. I'm just going to have you stop this video at this point, and you need to make your vocabulary flashcards, make your flashcard for the form that we learned here, the endings for porta, first declension noun endings. And take, depending on if you're taking this in a 16-week term or an 8-week term or a 12-week term, take an appropriate amount of time, a day or two, and learn that stuff. Learn the vocabulary, learn these endings. Then work on your translations on your own. Then come back, and well, here I see I've already listed the translations, haven't I? But then you would come back and watch me correct the translations. So do means I give, and then me is in the accusative, so I give myself. And philosophia, that could be confusing. That could be nominative plural, could be genitive singular, or it could be dative singular. How do you decide? Well, you try each one of them. It can't be nominative plural because nominative goes with the verb. It's the subject of the verb. But I already have a subject to the verb and it's singular. I give. Is it genitive? How do we translate the genitive? With of. I give myself of philosophy. Well, that doesn't quite make sense. So we'll try the dative. It's the indirect object. We translate with to. I give myself to philosophy. Okay, philosophia is nominative, so philosophy is the subject. Philosophy is the art, ars. Vitae, translate the genitive singular with of. Philosophy is the art of life. Now it could be dative singular, right? But does that translate well? Philosophy is the art for life. Well, maybe. Philosophy is the art to life. It's probably just genitive, right? Philosophy is the art of life. So there you have it. There's chapter 2. Make sure you know those vocabulary words from this chapter and the endings, that you can identify nouns. When you see them, identify their gender, number, and case, and then you will be ready for all the questions that will come in our quizzes from chapter 2.